Hello class. In this video I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the sky in my background because I think that's a common thing that can happen in images, especially if you're working with real photographs of a site and you just might not like your sky and you can get a different sky. And I want to show you some tips and tricks with just working with sky. It's nothing really new, but just some tips and tricks, and it seems to be a thing that can happen quite often. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google and start looking for skies, although I have done drawings where I've actually taken made a sky in Illustrator and pulled it in, and again I have different skies in my Illustrator videos, any of which might work for you for the style of drawing you're trying to achieve. So I'm going to go to Google, and I already typed in skies, and I saved this one already, and this is the one I'm going to use. I like this one for a couple reasons. It's subtle. A lot of times students like to pick some things that are really dramatic, like say this or this, but then it becomes overpowering in the drawing. I've seen it work in certain drawings, but you have to be careful and you have to make it work. And right now, the lighting and where the sun's coming from in these does not match my current drawing or even come close, so I'm going to stay away from something like that. But it's subtle, it's got these streaky lines in it. I sort of like, as an architect, I like linear things, so that's why I sort of like these linear things, so it's sort of nice. The other thing about this perspective, or this sky, I know it has some ground, and your image doesn't have to have ground, but it has to be from the right perspective. I'm going to use this one partially because I can show you how to get rid of the ground. Super easy if you don't know how. But you have to be careful because something like this is just not from the right perspective. If you like the strikingness of it, you're not flying in the clouds in this image, so it's not going to work for you. Alternatively, some of these aren't even really the right perspective. However, there definitely are some that might be usable. Some of these might be striking. That you might not think they're overly striking, and they might contain the right perspective, and you might want to do a cloudy day. I've seen renderings of rainy days where you might want to put in a rainy sky or this or that. They can all work for you, but I'm going to use the subtlety of this one. This sky has a little more interesting clouds than my original one, and the sky's a little richer of color, so I'm going to go with it. And what I'm going to do then to replace the sky is I'm going to turn off all my other layers in this file besides my background image, which is the one that currently contains my sky. And you might go ahead and do the sky work even before you begin to put anything in, because we're just working with the background. And as I always like to do, I like to duplicate my layer, so just in case I want to go back to my original drawing, I can. So I'm going to duplicate that layer so I have two copies of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Select. I usually find this is the best way to do this. I'm going to go Select Color Range. You've seen this in other videos. And the reason for that is I'm going to click on the blue color. The reason for that is it's tricky to get in between the tree branches because I'm going to have to replace the sky in these little areas here. I've already selected my preview to quick masks, so what's red is not going to be selected. And we can see if we play with our fuzziness bar, if we pull this down, we see we don't get clouds and we don't get the edges of the sky. And if we have this too high, we start losing a lot of the trees in here, and all this stuff that's not quite as red we're going to lose. So we want it to be quite high to do this because we want to find those little in-between parts, but we don't want it to be also super high or super low. So I think somewhere around there might be good. That's probably a little too low, so I'm going to unselect because I'm missing some areas in there. I'm going to try again, select color range, and I can see I'm going to pull this up, try around 150. You can see we're getting a little more spots in between these trees and not here. Arguably maybe we could go a little higher. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit delete. And it looks like nothing happened because I have a duplicate of the layer behind it. But if I turn off that layer behind, we can see our transparency is happening back there. So I'm going to Control D to deselect. And I've opened up the sky already in Photoshop that I'm going to want. I'm just going to go to my rectangle marquee, just select the sky because I don't want the ground. So I'm going to do this area. I'm going to go copy. I'm going to come back here. And I'm going to make sure that my layers are set right. I'm going to make it, I want it to be below my background copy. So if I select this layer and paste in, it's going to paste in there. And now the sky came in really big, I think. So if I do Edit, Transform, Scale, or Free Transform even, we can see this outline is really the scale. One of the nice things about sky, it's also one of these things you don't need to worry about proportions. Maybe you like the sky in a different proportion. Maybe you want the clouds to penetrate over to the right a little bit more. So I can just pull it out, it doesn't matter. Maybe I want to see a bit more of the sky, so I actually want to pull it up to that zone. So you have a lot of latitude. And in this case, I've just again, for demonstration purposes, really use this sort of stripy sky. It's sort of, you know, I don't know if it really represents clouds entirely truly, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it look sort of interesting. And then what I can do is I can turn on all my layers that are sort of relevant, not all the layers I am working with. So just turning on the ones that sort of matter for me, like this, and I can always stay on my sky layer, and I can do any effects that I want to do to it, as I have done in many other videos. I can adjust the brightness contrast if I think it's too bright or too contrasty. I can pull that down to fade it in. I can add filters to this if I want to make it sketchier. If I want to, probably not that one. You know, so I can make it sort of really a sketchy look. If I want to sort of, I'm just picking something sort of randomly, softening out the clouds, again, making it a little more sketchy looking. It's not, the current sketchiness doesn't really match the background image right now, so you know, I'll have to come through at the end of this and readjust everything to sort of pull it in. Again, you can bring in stuff directly from Illustrator if you created skies there if you want. You've got lots of latitude, but I just wanted to show that it's pretty easy to replace the sky. It's quite common to do so if you don't like the sky that's in your background. So so feel free to start pulling these apart. It's sort of just like when we did our build and we pulled the materials from the lines, from the shadows, so we could change them all independently. I've essentially just pulled the sky out of the midground and the foreground, so we can sort of work on those independently and make them have ultimate control of however you want. Again, of course, it comes down to what your rendering style is, and I highly, highly recommend doing a precedent search, getting ideas and seeing what you like, and seeing if you can emulate that, or ask me for help on what specific tools might be able to help you emulate something that you've seen out there. So we'll look at a couple other things sort of moving forward, and with that, and so good luck.